It was Friday evening when Lance and Ariel sat cross-legged, facing one another in her room, with the lights off and the blinds closed. Their parents were having a date night, which meant they were free to play the game. There was no denying that it was a strange game, but stranger still is the fact that nobody knows what happens once the game is over, because anyone who agrees to play is never heard from again. When they were ready to begin, Ariel reached down and lit the vanilla-scented candles situated between them. Then they two joined hands, turned their faces to the heavens, and summoned the celestial being. Gabriel, warring angel in heaven, we bid you come to us. Come now, and come quickly. Come, dear Gabriel, come. That was it. All there was to it. After a brief silence, Lance chimed in. Well, I didn't feel anything. Did you? Nope, Ariel said in disgust, and then leaned forward and blew out the candles. This game was stupid. Who in their right mind would summon an angel and actually expect it to show up? Lance paused as if seriously contemplating his sister's question, and sarcastically replied, Well, us. Ariel jumped up, grabbed her pillow, swung it at his head, and said, You are such a toad. She then pointed to the door and ended with, Now get out, because I'm going to bed. Lance knew that he was the one speaking, but the ominous words that came out were not his thoughts. Fine, maybe I'll disappear in the night, and you'll be rid of me once and for all. Ariel didn't immediately answer back. She was creeped out by the thought, felt a sudden urge to hold him close, but gave him a quick peck on the cheek instead, and simply said, Night. Lance forced a smile. His voice was just above a whisper when he said, Sleep tight. As he headed to his room, he was completely perplexed by the words that had come out of his mouth. That was definitely not something that he would ever say to his sister. Not at all what he had intended to say. Ariel was lured from her bed by the smell of pancakes and bacon, but before she made her way to the kitchen to stuff her face, she stopped by Lance's room and was relieved when she saw him, alive and intact. Unable to resist the chance to torment her twin, she crept across the room, dived on him, and yelled, Get up, sleepyhead. Lance was unnerved when he sprang up to a seated position. Oh my God! Ariel! I thought it was him, that this was the end. What are you doing? Are you crazy? He lamented. His reaction would normally be a riot, but this time, Ariel was more alarmed than amused. Even so, she reined in her emotions long enough to appear normal when she said, Stop whining and come and eat, then bounded off his bed and went to the kitchen. After breakfast, Lance and Ariel hung out around the house, and the rest of the day went off without a hitch. It wasn't until later that night, when their parents had left to attend a dinner party, and they had settled in with pizza and a movie, that the trouble began. 5 minutes into the movie, the screen went dark, just shut off for no apparent reason. Ariel got up to check that their cat hadn't pulled the plug out of the socket, while Lance was preoccupied with the buttons on the remote. Neither of them noticed the 7-foot-tall entity standing directly in front of the screen. Ariel felt a hand on her shoulder, but thought nothing of it until she looked up and saw that it wasn't her brother rushing her to get the picture back as she'd first thought. Standing before her was the most beautiful creature she'd ever laid eyes on. He was majestic, with blonde shoulder-length hair, a wide, muscular build, and eyes the fairest shade of blue. He wore a white, knee-length robe with a golden belt around his waist and Roman sandals that laced midway his calves. The belt and sandals were the purest gold she'd ever seen. She glanced over to the sofa, where Lance sat with his mouth gaping open, and the remote suspended in midair, looking as though someone had pushed a button and frozen him in that position. The entity didn't wait for an invitation to speak, but rather went on to say, "I am the angel Gabriel, who wages war against principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness in high places. I have been sent to protect you, because it was not I that you summoned, but a principality more powerful than anything you know. He, too, is named Gabriel, but he is the angel of death, and he's here to collect your souls." "You're who?" Lance probed, having finally snapped out of the daze he'd been in. "Here to do what?" Ariel asked in disbelief, holding the cord from their flat-screen TV in her hand. Gabriel didn't answer. He was done talking, had intensely focused on something in the dining room, which was adjacent to the family room where they were. Lance and Ariel turned their attention to the dining area, but could see nothing. The teens again looked to Gabriel, who simply lifted a finger to his lips, but kept his eyes trained on the dining room. At a glance, they'd been able to see nothing in the dining room, but when they were compelled to look a second time, they could see the hulking figure lurking in the darkness. It was as though a veil had been lifted from their eyes, allowing them to see into another dimension. An overwhelming sense of terror brought Ariel up from her knees and drove her into her brother's arms. The twins watched the warring angel pull a double-edged sword from the sheath that was strapped to his back and leap over the couch. He was lightning fast, and every muscle in his body flexed when he landed in the dining room and raised the golden sword above his head. In that instant, the veil was closed, and the twins could no longer see into his world. They would never know what happened next, but what they did know, what they were eternally grateful for, is the fact that they had been given a reprieve, and they were safe.